Jacobin has a funny article out titled "Everything is Political and No One Can Do Anything About It" by Anthony Yeager. And so funny because, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. It's pretty rich. This is coming from people like literal socialists, and they're complaining about everything becoming political. That's exactly what they are preaching. These people are in favor of worker-owned co-ops. Now, I've known plenty of regular, everyday people, and it's pretty obvious that the last thing they want is to work in a worker-owned co-op where, sure, they wouldn't mind their wages being higher, that's for sure. Okay, that's fine. But they could care less about, they just want to go to work. They're not like socialist ideologues. They just want to go to work, get their job done, put in a good 6 or 7 hours, go home, hang out with their family, watch sports, drink beer, do their hunting like hobby, bowling, go on vacation. It's not, they do not want to, they don't care about real American politics, what's going on TV with presidential politics. They surely do not want to sit in meetings where they decide what product to make, how much everybody should be paid, who should be fired. They just want to deal with worker politics at work as seeing as a bad thing. So how could Jacobin and these socialists basically argue for and advocate worker-owned co-ops and basically actually want to bring as much things as possible into the political arena, such as healthcare. Healthcare used to be private. Because of their lobbying, or big government lobbying, more and more healthcare is regulated, and they just want a complete single-payer healthcare. Well, that's political. Basically, there is not going to be enough of free healthcare for everybody. So politicians and bureaucrats have to decide who gets what operation. What's the cutoff age? How sick do you have to be too sick before they're not going to put you on hospice and not going to spend millions of dollars to give you an excruciating additional month? So everything about Jacobin is political. They want to turn everything into public, meaning the government, meaning politics. And now they have the balls, the nerve to write an article complaining about everything is political. But this is the only difference. It's not political in their sense. They're decrying the Black Lives Matter social justice movements, because that's not their liking. That's politics not to their liking. They like the politics of class struggle, the employer versus the employee. They don't like the struggle between, quote unquote, between races, or the social justice stuff. That's not their flavor of politics. But why isn't that's the race politics is a manifestation of the class politics from the 60s. As far as I know, after the collapse of the Soviet Union and socialism was basically dealt a severe blow, well, the same people that were socialists and saw the whole world as fighting us versus them, oppressor versus oppressed. Okay, they cooked up a new batch of politics. White versus black or whatever, So this modern incarnation of politics comes out of their old politics. But they're just little, seeing politics is everywhere, but it's just not their flavor. Well, I'm sorry, but this is the cooking that they cooked up. Why the solution would be, if everything's political, because why is that? Well, that's because the politics decides a lot of things in your life. Let's say if the presidency, their power was reduced. Let's say if the government could not control healthcare, or if the government could not control many other industries. Well, voting for president or fighting over it would mean not be so significant, right? It might not matter that much. And that's how you would take the temperature down. That's how you take politics of our society. Yet these people, I mean, I don't know, this is ironic or something. They want everything to be more political, bring government more and more into people's lives, and then complain that everything's political. I don't know, something's too funny, too funny. The article starts off with some French author in the 1990s. They quote, "The rumor was going around that politics was dead. The avert of New World Order was declared. The end of history was nigh. The world struggle was discredited as a throwback to Marxism, become an object of ridicule. As for defending rights, the first that came to mind were the rights of the consumer." So here we go. Here's what he's decrying here. On the other hand, a mixture, difference, and apathy of characteristic of the 1990s hardly applies today. Joe Biden was elected on a record turnout. Brexit referendum was the largest domestic vote in Britain's history. The Black Lives Matter protest was a mass spectacle. Many of the world's corporations took up the mantle of racial justice, adopting their brands to support the cause. A new form of politics is present on the football pitch, in the most popular Netflix shows, in the way people describe themselves on their social media pages. To many on the right, society now feels overtaken by a permanent Dreyfus affair, cleaving family dinners, friends' drinks, and workplace lunches. To many in the center has created a longing for an era before the hyper-politics, quote, a nostalgia for post-history in the 1990s and 2000s, when markets and technocrats were exclusively in charge of policy. Which is actually pretty interesting because I grew up in the 90s, and I specifically do remember going to high school, and it was we had a diverse class. I went to an arts high school, but basically, even mentioning it was like mentioning people's race was a taboo. Everybody was basically the same, and I could just only imagine the type of social justice stuff you get in any kind of schooling, especially high school these days. They're just the racial overtones. An era of post-politics has clearly ended. Yet, instead of reemergence of the politics of the 20th century, complete with a revival of mass parties, unions, and workplace militancy, it's almost as if a step has been skipped. Well, maybe it's not skipped. Maybe they stepped further. The politics has done one more step past the 20th century with their unions and stuff like that, and now it's onto the racial stuff or trans rights or whatever, But this is all related. And interestingly too, they are complaining about the union stuff, but it has something to do with probably automation. Like, America produces a shit ton of stuff. Probably the third largest exporter in the world. And they produce a lot of stuff, but less and less people are needed. So the people that actually do work in the factories are probably more skilled, get paid more. So there's less of a mass movement there. And I believe that more and more people. Well, the future's I'm pretty certain of it. Everybody's going to be freelance. If you're on a computer, you can do work on the computer. You can bounce around between states, between countries. You can collaborate with a group of people, with a company. Everybody on the project could be a freelancer. You would just form together for the project, maybe a couple weeks, couple months, and then disband. And if you did a good job, you'd be invited to collaborate again. That's the way of the workforce, I believe. So even this whole unions, the whole workplace union stuff, that's just old school. Most people are not turning a wrench in a factory with like a robber baron smoking a cigar, counting his cash in the top hat. Basically, you have the means of production. You have a laptop. Most of the production and design or whatever, it's made on a laptop, made on the computer. So everybody's their own boss in a way. And I'm sure if you have this union old school Jacobin politics, it's pretty perplexing to you. Back to the article. It's almost if there's a step has been skipped. Those were politicized by the era marked by the financial crisis will remember when nothing, not even the austerity policies imposed in its wake, could be described as political. Today, everything is politics, and yet, despite people being intensely polarized in all of these dimensions, very few involved in the kind of organized conflict of interest that we might once have described as politics in the classical 20th century sense. Yeah, well, I think the socialism, this unionized socialism, in summary, it's like, be careful what you wish for, right? Socialism sought to pin people, bring groups together, pin people against each other. Well, if their flavor didn't work out so well, there's a new and nastier and toxic flavor. And so, don't complain about it.